very much, everybody, for coming tonight to our launch party for John Bartlett's fantastic first novel, Chequered Justice. My name's Bobby. I'm your hostess for this evening.
Bobby.
As such, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you all. Myself and Tiff Needell are going to be reading a little bit from the prologue to the book, and John is going to say just a short couple of words before we do so. If you'd like to take centre stage.
Buy it. I'd basically just like to thank everybody for coming. A lot of faces that I haven't seen for a very, very long while. Some of you here know that it was quite a long journey to get to the point of getting this book out and produced. So just a big thank you for coming. Bear in mind the book would make an excellent Christmas gift, so if you really want to sell 2 or 3 for friends would be excellent. Okay? And once you've done that, do get onto the review sites online and give it a review, providing it's good. Okay? I'm again, those of you that know me, I'm not particularly brilliant at doing this sort of stuff. There's about 150,000 odd words of mine in the book, so I do hope that you will get a copy and read those words. I'll just pass you over.
And if you think it's me not giving you a free copy, I can assure you that I've just done my own book deal that the publishers give you 10 free copies.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. Everyone still thinks they're all going to get a free book from me.
Yeah.
And you get 10 free. You have to buy, if you've got more than 10 of your own book. I couldn't believe it. I actually got 25. I beat them up. So I managed to get 25. So you're not getting one for free, so you have to buy one.
You've got to drink £17.99 worth of wine instead. Stretching off to the horizon, the dark green waters of the channel glistened in the afternoon sun. A few flecks of cream crested the swell, and overhead the ever-present gulls circled tirelessly. A small boy made his way up the slight incline towards the Claremont Hotel. He was wearing short grey trousers, a red school blazer and a matching cap, which was perched on tousled golden hair. Both socks hung at half-mast, their garters purloined for the creation of some highly secret weapon. His skin was freckled from the sun, and his knees were scuffed. It was Friday, the end of yet another long school week. As usual, it had ended with Will joining a small group of trembling boys outside the headmaster's study on the first floor landing. Mr. Wickham, the head, was a stickler for discipline and had an enthusiasm for boxing. In a world of rigorous rules, infringements of any kind usually resulted in a thrashing, either in the school boxing ring or bent over a desk in the study. That week, Will's infringements had been numerous as ever. Bad reading, inexcusable spelling, illegible handwriting, terrible mathematics homework, and a generally appalling attention span. According to Mr. Wickham, punishment for violation of discipline was the only true route to scholarship, and he dispensed that punishment with relish to all the boys in his care. It would be many years before dyslexia, from which Will suffered, would be formally acknowledged. Will was just 7 years of age, destined to live out the rest of his school life at the back of a classroom, lost in his dreams, 6 strokes of the cane or 3 rounds in the boxing ring, the typical end to most weeks. Will quickly learned that authority was not always fair. He defiantly pulled free from the firm hand that was attempting to lead him and stood transfixed before the sports roadster that was reversing in front of his father's hotel. His frustrated minor was the 5th in the line of nannies, and in keeping with the tradition already set by the last 4, had just handed in her notice. The door of the car swung open, and a distinguished-looking man with a trim moustache and long sideburns emerged and made his way up the steps of the hotel. He wore an open-necked shirt, and his thick collar-length hair was swept back from his face. "Mister!" Will called, motioning towards the car. "What car's this?" The man turned, but did not get the opportunity to reply. The firm hand of the minder administered a thunderous slap to the back of the child's head. "Who's that man?" Will inquired through clenched teeth. "That's Mr. Hill. He's a famous racing driver," hissed the frustrated nanny. "He's staying at your father's hotel." Will had heard of Graham Hill. He was the man who had just won a big race at Goodwood. In his father's daily sketch, he'd seen the pictures of the huge crash that had almost claimed the life of another famous driver, Sterling Moss. It was the start of the swinging 60s, that classic era of Formula One, the time of world-class drivers like John Surtees, Jack Brabham, Dan Gurney and Jim Clark, when legends were being created. To the boy it sounded exciting, with characters straight out of his Boy's World annual. He decided there and then that he too would be a racing driver. Before the nanny could stop him, Will stuck out the stubby thumb of his free hand against his freckled nose, poked out his tongue and waggled the outstretched fingers mischievously. The guest, head cocked, did not immediately respond. Then, slowly, he raised his thumb to his own nose and his face breaking into a broad grin, returned the salute. The nanny gave a self-conscious nod of apology to the future Formula One Indian Le Mans champion and dragged the boy off to administer further retribution. The guests smiled at the boy who, now under firm control, grinned back. "I'm going to be a famous racing driver when I grow up," the boy announced. The nanny shrugged dismissively. "I doubt you'll survive long enough to get a licence, Master Middleton."
The sun beat down relentlessly on the packed spectator enclosure. The rev counter flicked as the Hilton-sponsored DFV-powered Tiger accelerated hard out of the S's and down the back straight, effortlessly scorching to 180 miles an hour as it approached the end of the straight. The 200-metre board flashed past in a microsecond. Cocooned within the thin fiberglass shell, swathed in fireproof Nomex, Will twitched his right foot across to the brake pedal, viciously punching 180 pounds of pressure to explode the pads onto the discs. His right hand snatched third gear as Jochen Mass, the race leader in the works Sauber Mercedes, shot past, turbos popping, flames billowing. Suddenly, the Tiger switched violently and without warning slewed sideways across the track, sending up a rooster tail of dirt. Will's race was over. Inside the ferocious heat of the cockpit, he removed his damp helmet, peeled off his fireproof balaclava and 3-layer Nomex gloves, and eased himself into the bright Australian sun. For Will Middleton, the last race of the 1988 World Championship had ended with suspension failure. He was frustrated but hardly surprised. After all, he was an underdog in a runner-up team driving an unreliable car, there for one purpose only, the glory of taking part. It contrasted so sharply with his previous results that year in the National Championship, 4 wins and 5 lap records, the best season of his career. This was Thatcher's 1980s, the era of the young corporate whiz kid, the yuppie, the time when individual bonuses easily topped £250,000. Companies had been growing exponentially and hostile takeovers abounded. The euphoria had been infectious, and it was an incredible time for an up-and-coming racing driver to secure corporate sponsors. Merger mania and leveraged buyouts had generated phenomenal sums as companies raised massive amounts of capital by selling junk bonds with a high risk of loss, but also an irresistibly high rate of return for those willing to gamble. With total disregard to risk and looking only to satisfied shareholders' hunger for bigger and better dividends, the pension and insurance industries had gobbled up their share of junk bonds, the billions of pounds generating further hostile takeovers as the bubble continued to grow. It had been the banner time for the stock market, everyone apparently winning. But if everyone had been winning, it meant nobody was losing. So money had been generated from nothing. No one had wanted to consider the obvious, that the bubble might soon burst. Logic had spiralled into a black hole of delusion. Ladies and gentlemen, toast, I think, I haven't got a glass, might surely be to wonderful words that we've both just been reading. There's a John Bartlett, and the very best of luck, John.
Yeah.